Dave, it's great to have you on the show. I'm always excited to get to meet new bands and get to learn more about people who I've never gotten a chance to interview before. So, Dave Radford from the Grey Havens, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys are a bit of an oddity for the show because, people probably know, we've interviewed everybody from, Maddie Montgomery of Memphis May Fire to Demon Hunter to all these heavy, heavy bands. And then we've got the Grey Havens who do not exactly fit that mold, but nevertheless have put out a really killer song called High Enough, which features Propaganda, and it's charted and it's made it onto the show, and I'm happy that it has. So how does it feel to be in kind of mixed company like that?
Man, I never thought the Grey Havens as a band would be next to the Demon Hunters of the world.
You're right.
But we are, but here we are. No, it feels good. Yeah, this is kind of our first maybe foray into the radio world, and it's a song that people on our team just thought might work, and so we're giving it a shot. So thankful to be here.
Very cool, very cool. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the song since we've already brought it up. The song's called High Enough and features hip-hop artist Propaganda, who has gotten a ton of critical acclaim over his, I guess, as a solo artist, a somewhat short career thus far. But, a lot of people know him as being in different groups throughout the year.
Was he in different groups?
Yeah, I believe, and people are going to write me letters, but I'm pretty sure he was in a group called the Tunnel Rats a long time ago. That was on a sub-label of Tooth and Nail called Uprock Records. But don't quote me on that because inevitably I'm going to be wrong. But I'm pretty sure that's the case. But, he's been around for a minute, and it's been cool to see kind of the embracing that he's gotten from many different types of people for what he does. But how did you guys end up getting hooked up with him for the song High Enough?
Honest answer is we just reached out. It was cold. Our manager reached out to Propaganda and his team, and he said yes. But we just opened for him a couple weeks ago in Kansas City or somewhere near there, and we were having dinner before the show. He was nice enough to just say, "Hey, come on out." And we were talking, and he said, "Yeah, usually I don't," just because he's probably pretty heavily sought after, but he was so nice and said, I as a rule I generally avoid cold reach outs, but saw your song come in. I would really like the song. I looked you guys up. I was into it, so he said yes. So it was kind of just a maybe Hail Mary is right. Maybe not a Hail Mary, but it was just like we didn't have a previous connection point other than we played to similar audiences.
Right.
There's some crossover, I would say, in the people that maybe listen to both of our music. So,
which is funny because I would agree with that. I think that there most definitely is a crossover because I think that both you and he kind of, for lack of a better term, make music for thinking people. It's not just something that's going to get stuck in your head, and it's not just a series of choruses stacked together so that it's engineered to be an earworm and get popular. There's actually a lot of thought behind it, and there's a lot of things that go into it, and especially with him, it's like I almost have a hard time getting into some of his stuff just because I'm usually thinking about too much already, and so I can't. I feel like I have to commit something. I feel like I have to commit to something to sit down and listen to a full record. But every time I hear some of his stuff come up, I'm like, this is good and I enjoy it, but I just can't take too much of it at one time.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, I think there's a total crossover there.
Yeah, it's you nailed it, and I struggle to put the words to that. It's kind of like what you're saying is that it's a really, like, if I use a metaphor, it's like a really kind of rich, maybe dessert or just like a really nice steak kind of a thing.
Right.
And it's something to kind of savor, enjoy, not rush through. It's not fast food, but you can't, but at the same time, sometimes it's good to take a break, from it. You don't want it all the time. And it's not that you need to take a break from his music. It's just that sometimes I'm kind of conscious of it when I'm trying to write songs. Just to backpedal a little bit, on this last record we did and the one that we're producing now, our producer's name is Ben Shive. And long story short, he and another artist he worked with, Andrew Peterson, were on the road and they got to run into Paul Simon in the recording studio. So they were like so excited, oh my gosh, we're going to meet Paul Simon. And they finally got to meet him. And I forget what the circumstances were, but they were all sitting down together. Here's this kind of, conversation. And at one point they got on this point of Paul Simon was talking about lyrics and how he tries to, if he's going to say something really heady or thoughtful in a song, he tries to counterbalance it even within the song. If he said something really thought-provoking or heavy, the next line will be something simple like everybody just wants to love somebody. Right. Or just something like that. It might even not even be connected to maybe an obvious connection to the line before it, but it's just kind of like a break.
Yeah.
That people can kind of soak in. And so I've certainly, as I've been writing for this past record, been trying to keep that in mind. I don't know if I succeeded, but I'm aware of that whole for myself, trying not to over barrage.
Yeah,
with the lyrics.
For sure. I mean, it gives it some space to breathe because, sometimes you need a second to chew on that heavy thought or something that's a little bit more thought-provoking. If the next thing is something that you have to think about a lot, too, it can often be like, oh, well, I can't get all this stuff, and then you just kind of walk away. Yeah. So, I can totally get that. I think that's a good way of looking at
it. To go back, when I read the Psalms, though, you read the Psalms, and some of these Psalms, or a lot of them, are songs.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of before, if you go back to Genesis, Moses, right before he enters the promised land, he's not going to be able to go, and commissions going to Joshua, and God tells Moses, here's a song, and I want you to teach it to Israel so that generations from now, they'll remember.
Right.
And so he spends this whole day teaching this song, and this thing is like an epic poem in a sense, where it's line after line after line after line after line. We're just such different people now. That's what that's speaking to. But it is kind of a moment where you pause and go, what were those people like? That this is what constituted a song written by God, no less, lyrically anyway. This is what kind of, when God writes a song, this is his way. Mm-hmm. And now here we are. It's like, it doesn't match at all, which that's not maybe good or bad, but it's just, it really interests me. Just the difference there in model.
Oh, I totally agree. And I think the big difference is that it's like God doesn't put out a single every month. And, it's like when he says something, he's not going to waste any time. Or you could think about the fact that, it's like if they were going to carve it in a big tablet, they didn't want a whole lot of padded verses. They want to get to the point.
Right. That's true. That's true. Yeah. No, that's a good call.
Wow. Cool. So now, how did you guys end up doing the song, back to the song High Enough, which we kind of are still talking about, but so you got him on the song. Was the song pretty much done and you kind of had space made for his verse on that, or how did that work?
Yeah. No, not ever having reached out to, or have ever done like a collaboration like this, especially with a hip hop artist, we were kind of scratching our heads like, how do you do it? So we built the track, we wrote verse 1 and the chorus and recorded some final vocals. And verse 2, we just left open with a beat for him for us to pitch to him to say, will you consider rapping on this? And so that's where he took it from there. We did have a phone call. Once they had agreed, we had a phone call, him and I, and just kind of, I laid out, again, great guy, I think really highly of him just as an individual, but I was just trying to lay out maybe what the second verse could be. And thankfully, he didn't chase any of the imagery that I gave him.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Not specifically. And I'm so thankful because he came up with something that I just really love and is way better than what I was trying to convey. I think he already got it, and that maybe that conversation was just like more of a confirmation of the direction he should go. But I just felt like he so captured kind of the spirit and the heart of what we were hoping for from him. So then he sends it back, and even though we respect him so much as an artist, and we're excited that he's said yes now. And even though that's all true, I, having never done this before, was still like kind of nervous. And I was telling him a couple weeks ago, I said, even when you sent your version back and we uploaded the vocals into the track, I had to turn to the producer, Ben, and say, I'm sorry, I can't listen to this cold for the first time. You got to put some headphones on. You got to listen to it and tell me if it's good or not. I don't know why. It was kind of weird. I was just kind of like pacing around the room, kind of gauging, kind of keeping an eagle eye on Ben's reaction. So he was listening to it, and all of a sudden I just see him turn over to where I was standing, and kind of excited expression on his face, and both kind of thumbs up in the air, like it's good. And then I said, okay, well, let's hear it, and it was great. It was perfect.
Very cool, man. Very cool.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it was fun.
That's awesome. Sweet deal. Let's do, now that we've kind of touched upon the touch point that a lot of listeners to this show will know you for, let's go back a little bit to kind of the beginning of the Grey Havens. I know that it's you and your wife, but did the band come after you guys were a couple or married, or before?
Yeah. Well, the short story is music wasn't a huge part of our dating, however months we dated, 9 months or whatever. To tell the story quick, we went on about 4 or 5 dates, and we weren't really clicking that much. And so I kind of said, hey, maybe we should just be friends, kind of thing. And my mom, who's a music teacher, kind of vetoed that agenda. And so, she didn't obviously force us to get back together, but she did kind of make her wishes known in the format of, and one way was inviting Alicia over our house every week there and after to teach her how to play guitar.
Okay.
So that she'd be around the house. And up until that point, I really didn't know Alicia as a musician. It was just more, that was my thing. And she had grown up, later I found out she grew up kind of as this closet, singer who just fell in love with musicals, big band era music. I mean, she would just sing these all the time, but she didn't really have an avenue to express that, and she was a little bit shy, and so that was just never really a big part of her life. And until a couple of things happened, and I think one of which was these guitar lessons, which by the end of which we were dating again for a whole host of other reasons. But we did get back together, and it was about 6 months into that I heard Alicia sing for the first time, really, with a guitar, and my jaw dropped. I was just kind of like totally taken aback with her voice, and so really, but even still, it wasn't until after we got married that we started singing together. And once we did get married, though, it was pretty hit the ground running, because I was already planning on doing a solo, trying my hand anyway at the singer-songwriter thing. And so I had these songs written in this studio that I was going to go record. And so right after we got married, I think the week after our honeymoon, I was down in Nashville. We were in Chicago at that point, and starting on the production. And so then she, on the first record, I said, hey, I think this was before we were married, but I said, hey, do you want to be in a band together? Because up until that point, I think she was just planning on being like the T-shirt girl.
Right.
That would make the shirt. She's super artistic, but it just kind of happened. And so our marriage kind of parallels the founding or the beginnings of the Grey Havens. And, from there, it was just playing coffee shops and, playing to the same 5 people every week that would come, like her grandma and my dad and some other siblings or whatever. And we just kind of cut our teeth playing coffee shops. And it wasn't until Noise Trade, we made this record and we put it out on Noise Trade. I don't know if you're familiar with Noise Trade at all.
Oh, yes, I most definitely am.
Okay, so put out Noise Trade, and that was kind of maybe at their peak. I don't know where they are now in relation to that, but that was just a heyday for Noise Trade placements. Mm-hmm. And so we were a featured artist, which meant I think like close to 10,000 people, I think, downloaded that record.
Wow.
In exchange for, their email address, which meant that we were able to email 10,000 people and say, can we come make a tour, put together a tour in some of your living rooms as for house shows? And we never even been to a house show, but we heard it was done. So, we just said, can we string together some shows? And people responded. And, that summer we went on our first tour, and it was kind of that list that Noise Trade provided us that launched us as a band.
Wow. See, that's cool. Because it's funny, because I don't think that I have ever interviewed a band who really got launched by Noise Trade. I think I've interviewed some artists who have had some things on Noise Trade at some point.
Right.
But usually it was kind of a it was an afterthought. It was like, oh yeah, we can do this and we can get out a
Right.
song or two, and it'll help further exposure to people who might not be finding us other ways. But that
Yeah.
is interesting, though. How do you feel like that changed things because you were on Noise Trade?
Well, I'll say this. Maybe if we had a manager, I'm not sure. Because we didn't know anything, and because it wasn't our primary way to make money at the time, it was just, I was actually in a dueling pianos band
Right.
that would play weddings and corporate events and on the weekends, and so that was my job. And because we just gave it away for free, because we didn't know any better or whatever, that it really paid off. It paid some dividends, and I guess what I am trying to say is, because we didn't need to monetize it, we didn't need to monetize an audience, and we were just able to give it away. It just opened us up to an audience that I think we wouldn't have otherwise had.
Okay.
So I don't know. That's maybe not the best answer to give, but that's kind of
No, it's fine. Well, no, there is one other Noise Trade related question I have for that. I mean, obviously, the main way Noise Trade works is you find an artist you like, you get to hear a song clip, you sign up for like a free account or whatever, and then you offer
Right.
your email address as kind of a swap for downloading a song or an album or whatever from
Right.
any given artist, which is very cool. And I've discovered bands and further enjoyed other bands because of that. But also there is, at least there used to be, I'm assuming it's still there, has kind of a donate button where people can just kind of give you a
Right.
tip for the record. Did
Yep.
that yield much, if anything, for you guys, especially to start with?
It did. Yeah, I think it did. I'm not sure what that. Maybe we made $500 on that record.
Wow.
Out of 10,000 people, but that was still $500 to us. That was
Right.
that wasn't bad. So, and we've done, I think 3 or 4 things on Noise Trade, and it's been great. So we're really thankful. So that's kind of the main way in which we've been able to, I think, make it work.
Okay.
Just having that base.
Nice. Very cool. Now, let's go ahead and talk about one of the other songs, and this is one that we might end up on the show as well. And this is also something different for a band that is described as a narrative folk pop band or pop folk band, as it were. You guys have a remix, and it's for the song "Ghost of a King."
Yeah.
First off, tell us a little bit about kind of the song in general, and then tell us how a band that fits into the lane that you're in ends up with a remix.
Yeah, that's both good questions. The second question was, how do we make a remix? And the short answer is, we didn't want to.
Oh. Well, that's honest. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we didn't want to make a remix. Our long-suffering manager, I'm just teasing. He's great. I mean, he's a great fit. And anyway, he said, let's do a remix of this. And I said, I don't want, why? And he said, well, let's just see how it sounds like. And we hired this guy, really talented producer named Matthew Parker, to do this remix. And the whole process was kind of, us kicking and screaming a little bit that what purpose does it serve? But it came back and we liked it. It was cool. And I kind of had to get over a little bit the purist mentality of thinking about remixes and kind of adjusting what category I put them in. If this was the song coming out on our record as the way that we're going to introduce this song to our audience as kind of the heart of it, it would feel not right.
Yeah.
But because it's a remix, I think there's room for kind of creative diversification and freedom there to just say, hey, here's this same song with a different spin on it. It doesn't kind of overlay the original. It doesn't compete with, it's just a different thing altogether. And it might reach a different audience. It might, people that like the original might think it's cool. And once I think it was when I went on Coldplay's Spotify when I was kind of raging against the remix thing. One of their songs, I'm sure it was something just like this, or one of their more recent hits or whatever. I think there was maybe 40 or 50 remixes of one song.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a band that I don't think any of those remixes, they would put on any of their records.
Right.
But it just kind of made me, and then looking at other bands and going, okay, there's 30 remixes of this one song. Like, I need to calm down a little bit and just go, okay, let's release a remix. So anyway, that's that story. What was the first question?
Just about the song in general.
Okay, yeah. Ghost of a King is an allusion to the Holy Spirit, and the song itself it's about the new birth and what happens at the new birth. I was listening to a sermon series, and kind of the imagery that was put forth to me that I then kind of took and ran with was questions surrounding, like, okay, what is faith? How does that play into salvation? What is the Holy Spirit's role, and what is Jesus's role in salvation? How do kind of those all work together? What I took from it was understanding that, okay, the Holy Spirit, it kind of brings us to Christ as the hope of our salvation, as the object of our salvation. The Holy Spirit is not life in it of itself. Jesus is, but faith is kind of the connecting to Christ. And so it's like the Holy Spirit opens your eyes to believe by faith in the object of your salvation, which is Christ. And I just never really put all three of those players in the same room in my head. And so this song is kind of an attempt at what does that journey look like? And so this song kind of portrays the ghost of a king, the Holy Ghost, kind of bringing someone to an all-satisfying source, which is Christ, and kind of being connected by faith. So that's kind of, I know it's kind of, I feel like I should say I feel like I should say Paul Simon-esque at this point, everybody's got to love somebody.
Yeah.
Just as a palate cleanse, moment. Just just 'cause it is a little bit involved mentally, but yeah.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. It's refreshing in a way that some answers I get to questions like that are, well, it's about how, it's about God and, how he cares for us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good.
I was like,
good.
Right.
That is, okay, it's refreshing.
Yeah. So it works, man. It works.
Good. Go ahead.
We talked a little bit about kind of how the band got started with you and your wife and kind of how that came to be. Now that it has existed for a while, mind you may not necessarily have a whole lot of things to compare it to, but what is it like being in a band that does tour and does do a lot, recording and whatnot, that is predominantly you and your wife? I mean, how does that work on a day-to-day basis for you guys?
Just as far as kind of what do we divvy up, or what's that dynamic like?
What's the dynamic like more than anything? Yeah.
Well, first off, I will say it's a huge privilege. We feel very fortunate, blessed, whatever word you want to use, just very thankful that we get to do music. And that is, it doesn't always feel like that, but when you really kind of step back, because it is very, very, I don't know what the word is. Well, I'll come back to that in a second.
Okay.
But we're very kind of just thankful that we get to do it. Now, having said all that, the process of it all is, how to say, it's like very not static.
Okay.
There's almost no routine. There's almost no week that looks the same. There's always kind of these transition points. It's very go, go, go. It's like okay, I was just thinking about this. I was reading a book, and one of the chapter titles that it was a novel. One of the chapter titles was "A Maze of Opposition."
Okay,
and that's kind of a good. That's a good picture for this. It feels like that, and it feels like you're in this maze, and you're working really hard to get to the next kind of checkpoint or place of solace or whatever. And there's this maze, but it's not like a static maze. It's like this maze that has a roof on top. And there's, how like in Star Wars where like the doors open from the top down,
right,
kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And it feels like really slowly, everywhere in this maze, windows of opportunity, or these doors coming down from the ceiling, are closing slowly.
Right.
And if you don't get to that door and slide underneath just before it closes, you have to then go and really race really hard to go to the next one. So all that to say is there are lots of windows of opportunity you're chasing. You have no idea if you're chasing the right things. And to make it in time, you just got through one thing, and then you realize there is another window that's 3 weeks away, and we really got to work hard to make it sure we get there. So all that to say is it's chaos.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just total, but we feel called to it, and it really can be fun. It's like, in some ways it's like a lot of jobs where there's things you love about and things you don't, but this particularly feels like I have no idea where we're going. Thankfully there are friends who have done this before, that we can ask, but nobody has our situation. So we're really just kind of figuring it out. And because the music business is changing so rapidly, you constantly feel like this is a maze nobody's kind of went through before. Or in another analogy, it just feels like a frontier. Like you're kind of you're pillaging ahead, and you don't know if you're going the right way or what's beyond that thing. So I don't know. It's exciting, and to be able to have Alicia with me throughout it all. I often think to myself, I don't think I could do this if it was just me.
Yeah.
I don't. It would be too lonely.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's already a little bit lonely, but having a manager helps. And I don't know. It's an interesting life, but we really like it.
Very cool, man. Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, you kind of alluded to that you guys are working on a new project right now, that is in progress. Is there anything that you can tell us about that, kind of what to expect at this point?
Yes. The album is going to be called She Waits.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a concept record, or a themed record, about forever or eternity. It's kind of got a very heaven-oriented or eternal kind of perspective-oriented set of lyrics. We're 7 months past the deadline to get it submitted. And that's that's because of me.
So much for keeping it simple.
Yeah, I know. That's right. Yeah, our team, our manager, and really though mostly our producer, Ben Shive, who, by the way, you should go listen to all of his records he's produced. I've never met a better musician, and I don't know if it's close. Like he's just a ninja when it comes to, and he's a very loyal, faithful friend, and very patient. He's given us way more time on this record than was planned, and we're very proud of it both together. But he was so invested in it, and he's kind of the it's a thankless job in a lot of ways to be a producer, but he makes the music come to life. And so we're at this Friday is the last tracking day. It's just finishing up a couple vocals.
Oh wow. Okay. Final
vocals. And what took so long was the lyrics. We went into the studio over the summer, just kind of me going, I wrote 2 or 3 songs. I had sketches for about 6 or 7 others. And I was really nervous to go in the studio because it takes me forever to write anything. And we kind of were just like, well, let's give it a go. And we got to the end of August, started in June, got to the end of August, and it just was a long way from lyrically being done.
Right.
And it was so discouraging. I remember one of the last days in that August recording time, we were trying to finish some lyrics, and he was throwing out some ideas for this song called Storehouse. And I just looked at him and I was like, man, I don't even care anymore. Like, sure. You know, that's how I feel. I feel like I don't even care anymore about, and that was when I kind of knew, like, okay, I need to step back. And so it took about, 6 months after that to, and not because I'm full-time writing lyrics, it's just because you have to tour as a band.
Yeah.
And so it's another one of those windows. It's kind of one of those windows I was talking about, where you have a window of opportunity to write and be in a good place to write. And when you're on the road, for us, when we're on the road, that's a complete survival mode arena, and writing lyrics is not going to fit in that. Yeah. Likewise, when you're in the studio and you're creating tracks, me going in the other room to try to write a song isn't going to work. I'm just not going to be able to. So sure, months will go by, but you have to put this on hold and do other things in order to sustain the band. So in part, that's why it took so long, but man, it was the hardest thing. Yeah. That we've, certainly for me, that we've had to do as a band, that this record was, but this is the last tracking, this coming Friday is the last tracking day. And we're really, really happy with how that turned out.
Very cool. Now, do you think stylistically it's taking any new directions that maybe the last one did not?
I think so. Every song on the record is piano driven. Okay. I think only 2 on the last work piano driven. I don't know. There's a certain fabric to it that's different. The last record was a little bit both records are heavy, but the last one was heavier in a more like maybe spaghetti western kind of way, in the sense that and maybe it's just as heavy and just as complex on this new one, but I think just the main instrument changing from guitar to piano changes a lot of how things sound. So I think it maybe feels brighter. Okay. But man, that is like the lamest answer I could give you. Piano's on this record.
That's okay. That's okay.
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. It's almost like somebody asking, and it was a good question, but it's like when people ask me, I was trying to book a show with somebody at a college. She said, well, what do you sound like? And I said, well, it's like narrative pop folk. It's got some of these elements from, I was naming some bands like, it's a little bit, got some Fleet Foxes in it, or maybe Coldplay, or I was just kind of struggling to like, and she kind of said, well, you're not very good at describing what you sound like. and I said, okay. And I was kind of getting mad at her. I said, okay, what's a band you like? And she said the name of one of her favorite bands. I said, what do they sound like? And there was silence, I think. It was just like, it's kind of one of those. I shouldn't have done that maybe, but just moments where it's like, the reason you make the songs is, so that you don't have to say anything, so that you don't have to make you wanted to say something this way. Right. But then when people want you to preface it by saying it in the complete other way that you were trying to, I don't know. That's weird. So.
Fair enough. I will never ask that question again.
No, it's a good question. And that just means I need to come up before the next interview with a better answer. I don't know.
Well, there's another direction you can go with it. Just make up somebody.
That's right. Yeah.
Just be like, be like, we sound like Garbage Pail. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. The killer whales.
Yeah,
You've
the
ever
killer
heard of
whales,
them? Yeah.
Makes me a little bit of killer
Yeah.
whales and a little bit of
Yeah.
ooh.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's just a symbol, but it's pronounced ooh.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Just so that you give them some kind of reference. So, man.
Well, dude, that's fair. That's fair, and it is funny because it's just like, and this probably doesn't pertain to you, and if it does, then forgive me in advance. But it's almost like whenever I see a band try to have like a really hugely meaningful connection from stage when they're not singing and they're just kind of talking to you. Half the bands I see do that. I'm like, I totally get why you sing because you can't talk.
Right. Yeah.
It's like speak through your music and let that be that. And if people want to come up to you afterwards and ask you questions, answer the questions, and that's good. But don't feel like you have to make some sort of like major speech from stage unless it's already there. It's like if it's there and it's thought out and you know what you're going to say, do it. But if not, I always just kind of feel like you're mumbling on stage.
Yeah, I totally hear that. Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, but you're doing fine, by the way. This is not a reflection on this interview.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Oh man. Oh shoot! All right. Well, now I know that you guys are going to be doing some dates coming up very soon. As a matter of fact, I saw that you guys are playing in Longview very soon in Longview, Texas, which is funny because that's where my parents are right this second, and that's where my aunt lives.
Tell them to go.
So yeah, well, I don't know. They might. You never know. I don't know what my aunt is into, but I know she's in like her late 60s or early 70s, so she's up there. But you never know.
Yeah.
I mean, she's an adventurous type.
Is where we're playing. That is the best venue we've ever played.
Nice.
It's just this. It's a newer auditorium. I mean, and you feel like you shouldn't be playing in there when you're in there. It's really much more nice than we're used to. It's an amazing venue. But yeah, we've been to Laterno a few times, and they graciously keep having us back. So yeah, we'll be there on the 13th.
I think, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I have been to one concert at Laterno, but it would have been about 1993, 94.
Yeah, I don't think they had that venue then.
Yeah, probably not. But I saw Steve Taylor there, which was fun. That was back on his Squint tour, or the Squinternational tour, which was fun. So yeah, at least I've been to the campus at one point at least.
What's the best concert you ever went to?
Oh my goodness! See, that's so hard. I mean, I think the one that I think moments make a huge impression on me. Like, moments like.
Well, maybe not. You don't have to. Yeah, it's not the end all be all. But maybe what was a great concert that you went to that's memorable?
For me, I think the one that I remember the best, and I don't know if this will be of any impression on you at all, but I went to go see. Stavesacre and Living Sacrifice and Project 86 at a coffee house that was not meant to have concerts and had very bad ventilation. And by the end, the sweat had condensed on the ceiling and was raining. It was literal rain of sweat. And I actually had to leave during the last song because I was about to vomit. But it left a huge impression because of many moments in that show. But that would probably be the one for me. But I'm kind of a softie. I mean, moments on stage just really get me. I mean, if you want to get me to cry instantly, show me a clip from something like The Voice where somebody, or like America's Got Talent, wherever somebody gets like the golden buzzer, that like instant happy tears for me. And it could be anything. It doesn't matter if it's like a singer or a dancer or whatever. I'm just like, man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
I am very much a person who enjoys live productions like that. Be that from doing live radio or doing that coming from doing theater in high school. I don't know, but for whatever reason, stuff like that touches me. So I mean, there's been
that's a good answer.
A good bit of different kinds of concerts that have really gotten me, but that's one that definitely stands out for me, though.
Okay, no, that's good. I'm always curious.
Yeah, for sure. Well, real quick, before we totally wrap things up, there's one question that I always like to ask people, and this may be a first for me asking somebody who plays your genre of music, but as a lead singer of a band, you tour, all over the world. You write songs, you record them, you put them out there. You have fans. You have a fan club now, which is cool. People can check that out. But as that person, what is for you Dave Radford, the lead singer of the Grey Havens, what is the most un-rock and roll thing about you?
Man, on rock and roll. If you were to spend a day at my house, you would have zero reasons by the end. Within the first 15 minutes, you just go, oh, this guy, he's just kind of a nerdy. No, who said? I forget who said it. Everybody's a nerd. It just depends on what.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. And for me, it's just, I'm not super cool. I don't see myself as that kind of really. So I've never was super cool. Okay. I don't know if this is the most un-rock and roll thing about me, but I have a ping pong table.
Okay.
And I bought my own paddle.
Okay.
That was like $40.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And I have watched many YouTube videos on how to put various types of spin on the ball. And
Okay.
I'm not, for an amateur, I can beat most people. But I think if you were just to fly on the wall and saw how much, time I put into watching YouTube videos by these old European guys talking about spin that they put on the ping pong ball, you would be convinced that I'm no rock star. So
now is that what? Now this is not meant to be punny in any way, but it is when you put a spin on a ball. Is that called the attitude? Is that what they call that?
I should know that. I'm gonna go YouTube that.
Okay,
but yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I really do like ping pong. I oftentimes will play people left-handed.
Oh, wow.
Otherwise, it's just a nerd thing that I learned how to do when I was a kid.
Okay.
And so I often will play somebody left-handed. And I don't know, that's fun. For my wife and I play, that's kind of our thing.
Cool. Awesome. Well, dude, the warning is out there for anyone who wants to take on Dave.
Yes, and I have never, to my knowledge, lost a thumb wrestling match.
Oh my goodness! Wow, now that is something to be proud of.
Yes, and I've said that to roomfuls of people that have then challenged me, and learned the hard way. I don't think I've really met anybody ever good, but I don't think I've ever lost. So ping pong and thumb wrestling. Yeah.
Wow. Now, if you want to go for the trifecta, you need to tell me that you either A, know how to knit, or
that's my wife.
Or B, you can juggle.
I can juggle.
Oh, there we go! Yes!
Oh, man.
Now, I have to know, were you a homeschooler?
I was not, but I really feel like I have very much a kindred spirit, and I feel like I would really enjoyed it.
Yes, I think so.
To homeschoolers. So. We're going to homeschool our kid, I think. But
see, there you go. Yeah,
I really have been impressed with a lot of homeschool kids and public school kids, but there's an affinity there.
Yeah.
That it's like, oh, okay, you're like one of me. You're one of the, I don't know. There's a definite camaraderie there.
Well, before anybody sends me mean emails, I'm a homeschooler and I was the whole way through, so I can make these jokes.
Okay.
And so many of the people I knew who were that acquired interesting talents like that, like things that you can get good at kind of by yourself, and when you have an extended period of time. Yeah. And I man, especially if they were into performing anyway, it's like if you knew a person who was into theater and they were homeschooled, you darn well better know they knew how to juggle.
Yeah, that's right. That's funny.
Oh, dear. Well, cool deal, man. Well, dude, it's been great to get to know you. Hopefully we'll get a chance to run into each other somewhere around
absolutely.
Smashville here, and maybe we'll run into each other and hang out. But, dude, it's been fun. It's been fun getting to know you, and I hope that things continue to go well. I know that this has been kind of a new step for the Grey Havens, but, man, you guys are doing some great stuff, and just keep it up.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Paul. Thanks so much for having me on.